playing TDU Solo Crown, I get this weird rush of nostalgia. Probably because the devs took a lot of features from the old games and then added to them and made them better. However, some of the features were completely neglected and left behind. And in today's video, I'll be going through 10 of them, so let's hit 4,000 likes on this video if you want them back. Oh, and I don't mention bikes, casinos or houses in this video because they're practically confirmed for the future of Solo Crown, so yeah! And hello, it is I, and let's get into this video. Now in both TDU1 and TDU2, the infotainment screens actually served a use because they displayed the sat-nav. Yep, instead of looking at your mini-map, you can look at the infotainment screen and see the map on your screen. So yeah, man, you can basically turn off all your HUD and cruise realistically looking at your sat-nav, which is amazing. But in TDU Solo Crown, well, they unfortunately scrapped that. Like, this used to be a really unique feature about TDU games, and they just scrapped it completely and went the Forza route and the Gran Turismo and the Crew route, and it's like, why? How could you get rid of such an iconic feature like that? Like, it's not just iconic, it was useful as well. Like, this was such a good feature. Okay, now let's be honest, they probably scrapped it to be more realistic because the sat-nav view shown on the screen was not exactly like accurate to the car in real life. But come on, it was a genius feature that really stood out, and it just doesn't make any sense getting rid of it. Now, old TDU games were more so about exploring than they were about racing. And you could really tell this because there were lots of missions in that game which sort of forced you to explore, and I really enjoyed it. As in the start of TDU2, there's this photographer guy who says that he hired this guy to take pictures of Ibiza, but all of the pictures turned out blurry, so he wants you to retake those pictures, and yeah, this made you sort of explore the map of Ibiza more than just the race areas, which really showed how beautiful the map of Ibiza was in TDU2. Like, it was a stunning map, and it's a great way of extending the life of the game and like sort of adding an end game after you completed all the races. It was genius. But in Test of Unlimited Solo Crown, we do not have any of those photography missions, which is very sad news because this map has great potential for this photography missions, and yeah, it would have been great. So yeah, that's another thing TDU2 has above Solo Crown, the photography missions, because they were so they weren't fun, if I say, but they're a very smart way of extending the game's lifespan. Now, when you think of cops in racing games, you probably think of Need for Speed, but I, on the other hand, also think of Need for Speed, but another game with really cool cops is Test Drive. Yep, because as you may know, in TDU1 and TDU2, the cops were built different. They had EMPs, they had helicopters, and even online players would join in as cops to chase you down. And unlike Need for Speed, the cop chases were genuinely scary, as the fines can end up being extortionate, as you'll go into a cop chase being a millionaire and you'll end with no money whatsoever. And as you may know, in Test Drive games, the money is really hard to get, so yeah, this added to the scariness of the cop chases. But in Solo Crown, well, there are no cops to be seen, which is very disappointing. I would have loved to see cops in this game. Hopefully this is something they do add in the future though, because we are getting motorcycles, houses and Ibiza in the future, so just imagine cops alongside all of those things. That would be amazing. I would love that so much. Now in TDU1 and TDU2, the dealerships actually... Stupid Cayenne. Anyways, the dealerships actually looked very unique. I mean, you see a massive logo of the car manufacturer outside of the dealership. You even saw some of the cars inside the dealership through the glass, and yeah, it just looked very unique. But in Test of Unlimited Solo Crown, well, I'm not saying it doesn't look unique, but it just doesn't hit the same. For example, I'm coming up to this Lamborghini dealership, and it does say Lamborghini on that hologram, and also there's like an emblem thing over there. That does look pretty cool. But the glass is like, there's no glass. What is this? Anyways, looking at the dealerships themselves, everything just seems way too dark in my opinion. I mean, it genuinely feels like a Batcave, which is very fitting because this is a Lamborghini dealership, but yeah, it just feels like, I don't know, man. I miss the airy, bright feeling of the dealerships in the old TDU games like TDU1 and TDU2, but here, it just, I don't know, it just feels a bit too dark in my opinion. Also, because this is a test drive game, we of course have the ability to test drive cars. I mean, look at this 10 million credit Lamborghini Countach. I can of course spec this car however I like it. I'm gonna go with the purple with a bright interior, and now we're test driving this car, but something just doesn't seem right, because if I look to my right, then where's the receptionist? Is there nowhere? I've just been given a 10 million credit car with like no supervision whatsoever, and it just doesn't feel like a test drive. But of course in TDU2 and TDU1, I believe the receptionist actually goes on the test drive with you, and it actually feels like a test drive. Okay, now yes, I know having the receptionist as a passenger does not affect the game whatsoever, but it was a really nice touch and it made the test drives actually feel realistic, and I really liked it. But in this game, you're just given this car for free with no supervision. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm really glad that they kept the dealerships in this game because this was one of the best features about test drive, but I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, and in my opinion, I feel like TDU2 did the dealerships better. Now, a new feature we have in Test Drive Solo Crown is of course the gas stations, which are really cool, as if you visit them then you can actually clean your car up and repair any damages, which is really cool. But something seen in the old TDU games which is not seen in this game are the car washes. Yep, because in those old games you had dedicated car washes where a bunch of girls come and clean up your car, and they're dressed in very like exposed clothing, let's say, and yeah. But of course in Solo Crown we do not have the car wash. But okay, yes, I know the gas stations can clean up your car, but the gas stations just don't hit the same as the car washes in the old game. Like, the car washes was such an iconic part about those old test drive games, and then they just decided to get rid of them in this game, and it's just such a quirky feature, it's such a test drive feature. Okay, now yes, the car washes were pretty useless in TDU2 and TDU1 because you can basically clean your car for free by visiting your house, but come on man, they should have kept it in this game for tradition. Now, TDU1's Oahu and TDU2's Ibiza actually featured airports with runways, and believe it or not, through a glitch you can actually drive on the runways, and there were planes landing on it and you can race the planes. It was so cool. But as you may know, Solo Crown is set in Hong Kong Island, and Hong Kong Island does not actually have an airport. Yep, the means of transport in this game are these helicopter drone things which look like they came out of Watch Dogs Legion. So yeah, I guess this game doesn't technically need airports, but it would have been a really nice touch. And if you think about it, most open world racing games actually have airports, and they were probably inspired by TDU games, yet now this new TDU game does not have an airport, and those games have really cool airports. So I don't know man. Now I know this is a 1:1 scale map and they can't really add an airport to this game because then the map would be unrealistic, unless we actually get the full map of Ibiza in December and we actually get the airport alongside with it. That would be genius as well. Honestly, bring back the airport, please, Skeleton. Now it's no secret that in TDU Solo Crown we do not have houses. Instead we have hotels, which is a pretty good temporary solution because in the future we will see houses, but at the moment we have a hotel. But I have a small gripe with the hotels in this game, because you have all this furniture in your hotel but you can't change it whatsoever. But as you may know, in TDU2 you can actually change your table, your chairs, your sofas, your wallpaper, your carpets, your floorboards, your tiles, and even frame up pictures that you took in the game. But in TDU Solo Crown, at the moment we don't have any of that, which just why? I mean, I guess this is a hotel, so technically someone else owns it, so you can't really change up anything inside it. But come on, that would have been a really cool addition, and it doesn't have to be realistic because this is a game. So yeah, I would have loved it if we had the ability to change up the hotel interior, because that would have been a nice taster for what we're going to see in the future. Now, something I really loved about the old test drive games was the map view, because it was actually like a live view of everything that's happening in the game, and also it was a satellite view, so you can literally see every part of the map in the satellite view. So you can see the sandy bits, you can see the foresty bits, you can see the city, you can see the mountains, and yeah man, the satellite view was very handy in Test Drive Unlimited 1 and 2. But in Test Drive Unlimited Solo Crown, well, we don't really have a satellite view of the map. Instead we have this. Yep, this looks very sci-fi, and it's very hard to tell where certain parts of the map are. Like, you can kind of tell that this is the mountainous bit and these are the off-roading bits because their tracks are different color, but you don't know where there's going to be sand. Like, is the sand over here? Is the sand over here? Like, I don't know. Even if you zoom in all the way, nothing changes. It's still like this sci-fi view, and don't get me wrong, it's really cool because you can see the buildings and everything and they're 3D, but I'd much rather see the terrain than the buildings because yeah, I just want to go to a beach, but I can't find the beaches in this game because you can't see sand, so yeah. And also, this is the most that you can zoom out, and yeah, you can't zoom out more than this. It's kind of like the Crew Motorfest, and yeah, it's so annoying. But in TDU1 and TDU2, you can actually zoom out all the way, and it's crazy to think that those maps were like far bigger than the map of this game. Yeah, in those games you can zoom out completely, but in this game, this is the most that you can zoom out, and it just doesn't make any sense. Okay, now a really small feature I loved about TDU2 is when characters wanted to talk to you, they literally called you. And when they called you, you heard a ringtone, and it actually felt like it was your friend calling you on your phone. It just felt very personal. I loved it. But in TDU Solo Crown, it's very rare for other characters to call you, and if they did call you, it was most likely gonna be Vivian, because Vivian is basically like the only person who talks to you in this game. And yeah, it just feels a little bit too robotic in my opinion. Like, it's very Forza-esque, like one person talks to you and the other characters are basically just sort of like forgotten about. So yep, it's a very tiny detail, I know, but I really loved the phone calls and the ringtones in the old TDU games because they just felt so personal. I loved it. Now, one of my favorite things about old TDU games were of course the missions, because the missions in those games actually required different set of skills. Because there was one mission where you had to tail a cheating girlfriend's car, which required you to drive stealthily. There was another mission where there was an adrenaline junkie who wanted you to drive as fast as possible, which of course requires fast driving. Jesus, what the hell? Okay, there was also another mission where there was a passenger that gets car sick easily, which requires you to drive as carefully and as smoothly as possible, kind of like a chauffeur. And of course there were car delivery missions where you have to drive another person's car to a certain destination, and that required you to not damage that other person's car, otherwise you would get less of a payout. And yeah man, these missions were ingenious, I loved them, but in Solo Crown, well, we don't really get those missions. And yeah man, I would have loved those missions in this game. Now don't get me wrong, the races in this game are actually really fun, but come on, those NPC missions hit different, and honestly, this game does not feel like a proper test drive game without them.